Okay, it's 5,000. We haven't all turned into pumpkins yet, so we'll kick us off. All right, hi everybody. Welcome to the June monthly call for BeeAI. Thank you for being here and being interested in shaping the vision of this with us. If you're a reminder that if you're not already part of our Discord channel, that's where we have a lot of community conversation. We post new announcements, feature updates, and any impressive community builds that have happened. So we have a relatively packed agenda today. So I'm going to kick us off and share some of the wonderful community contributions we've had over the last month. And then we're going to hear some ACP updates, platform updates, and framework updates in that order before opening it up to Q&A. So we're going to start something new starting this month. And at the beginning of the call, we're going to highlight some of the community contributions. So if I missed your contribution, I'm highlighting 3 today. Please just message me on Discord or post it, even better yet, in the Discord channel. And we'd love to highlight it. If you don't want to brag for yourself, we'll brag for you. So I'm going to share my screen for a second so I can just show some of this awesome work. All right. Can everyone see this? Cool. So I'm just staring at my other screen over here, sorry. So Titus Lim wrote an article about ACP that I wanted to share, and I really liked how easily that he broke it down. And there were lots of code examples to follow. So if you're looking for a really good introductory piece on ACP, this is a great community-driven one. And then next we have Jared Barnes. He built an evaluation framework for multi-agent systems built on ACP. And I haven't tried this out yet, but I'm really excited to. It's relatively robust as well. So it has LM as judge, it calculates tokens and cost, and it's pretty much everything you'd need to build a really robust dashboard off of to do evaluation. Impressive addition. And then lastly, but not least, Gong wrote a bridge server that connects ACP agents with MCP clients. And we had something already instituted as part of ACP, but this is definitely a more thought out, robust version. I seem to like that word today. And so this makes it so you can easily connect MCP compatible tools like Claude Desktop with your ACP servers. Yeah. And again, relatively thought out and comprehensive. So those are 3 community highlights for this month. If, like you said, I missed your contribution, yeah, I will definitely share links. Actually, they're all in the Discord. So we post them there first, and we're going to start after the calls every month. We'll have a thread where we post all the contributions. And if we missed yours, you can add yours there and we'll feature. So that's it. With that being said, I will hand it off to Matosh for ACP updates.
Sunday. Okay, so I have a very brief presentation on what's new in ACP. So there is a couple of things. First, we have the TypeScript SDK. We said that last time, but it was kind of, done like just a couple of days before the community call. So now it has been there for a month. So it's called ACP SDK. It's available in the npm JS. So if anyone is interested, go for it and give us a feedback. The other thing, we have now the high availability support through the server stores. So what does it mean? Like if you take your agents and you want to run them on, multiple replicas behind a load balancer, we give you, as part of the SDK, possibility to create a centralized storage using Redis or PostgreSQL. You can obviously, there is, abstractions. You can even write your own storage if you need to. And there is the example. All these slides are actually available in the GitHub repo, and I will send them to the Discord after the call, so you can click on these links and get access to these examples. The other thing is we renamed Agent Detail to Agent Manifest. That's just a small change. And we have new agent examples. So we have the RAC Llama Index agent. That was a community contribution. We have now the orchestrated pattern and parallelization pattern examples, and also now new citation agent, which I will get to in the next slides. So that's 4 things, but we have more. So another kind of significant addition from perspective of the ACP spec is we added the role property to the message. And people were asking for that. Obviously, the main motivation is the LLM inference, right? Where you need to know for the chat interfaces, you need to know who is the originator of the message, right? Whether it's user or assistant or a system. And also the other motivation was in multi-agent systems, you want to know who is sending the message, right? So that's the reason, that was the motivation for adding the role. Has kind of 2 values, right? You can it has the value of user when the message is coming from the user, or agent, which is a kind of a generic, like it's coming from agent, doesn't have a name. But obviously there's also an option, and that's a preferred way to specify the name of the agent. So agent/name of the agent. By the way, the SDK sets this automatically for you, so you don't have to do anything. So there is no real, you don't need to pay attention to this that much if you're using SDK. If you are using the ACP and the spec, in the raw fashion, you will see it in the spec as additions. Other thing we added is the metadata property to the message part. And the reason for that is we want to provide this kind of, we call it agentic components, right? We want to standardize the way how agents talk. And there's specific things like citations, chain of thought, logs, tool calling, and other things. So we're starting with citations. So as part of the metadata field, you can provide a citation metadata, which has this format, and you actually, and there is the example you can play with it as well. There's a citation agent, but the way it works, you can send a message which is multiple parts. And for example, in this case, I want to cite the cow thing. So I send another message part where I say this is the citation, this is the URL where is the source of the citation, and you provide the index, which actually is pointing to this tipping a cow thing. So there is more properties. There is whole model spec link here, so you can get the description of what these properties are. All of them are optional. So that's the citations. And the other thing, the last thing, is the distributed sessions. So that's actually a very new addition and very cool one. I have in this code example, I have, you imagine that you have 2 agents. They both are called chat agent, but they are running in different infrastructure and different servers. But you want to, as a client, talk to each of them, and you want to share the session. And by session, we mean the ID of the session, the chat history, and some state. So what you can do is you can, talk to one of them, say, hi, my name is John. And in the next iteration, you talk to the other one, which runs a different port. That's running a different server, and you ask what is my name again. And thanks to the magic that's happening on the SDK, actually these agents can share the same sessions, and obviously would get a response, your name is John. So this is very quickly, we have a pending activity on this. We need to provide the docs and explain how exactly this works. But we abstract all the complexities of these distributed sessions for you. So this is kind of a magic, and it really allows you to write distributed agents. And the other update is what are we working on right now, right? So we are working on the agenting components. So I showed the citations, but there is more things. The next thing is what's coming is logs, but we are also looking at the trajectory and the retrieval context. We are still looking at the authentication authorization schemes. We are looking at the TypeScript SDK for the server part. We are also looking at how to configure the agent as part of the run of the agent, and how to provide the agent, how the agent should provide information about the input and output schemas to the other agents and users. We have 5 issues that have a help wanted tag. So if anyone is interested and wants to contribute, here is a link. And obviously, we always welcome any contributions to the docs and examples. So that's it. Thank you, and back to you, Sandy.
Thanks, Mateusz. I'll just take this opportunity to pass it for platform updates for Tomasz and Radek.
Thank you, Sandy. Right, so let me share my screen. All right, so the platform update. Let's cover first the new addition to the platform. Some of the things are actually leveraging the new good things that Matos just shared, like, for example, the citations. So I'll be covering it. But so the first thing we introduced is a playground, right? So the playground is essentially something that you used to know under the name of Compose Playground. We decided to move it to a separate section, separate UI, and the isolated URL. So now it's something we are calling Playground. The main reasoning why we decided to move it as a separate thing in the platform is so that it would give us more options to actually experiment with composition in the future. So you can expect some really cool things to happen in the future with the playground, which is now a separate thing. If you want to run it, you can run it either via CLI by BeeAI Playground or by simply navigating to the /playground URL in the app. So this is the first thing we changed. The other cool thing is that right now the ACP awaits are already supported in the CLI, the platform. So basically, what is await? The await is a concept in the ACP that allows for some kind of intervention in the agent communication. It can be either human intervention or an external system. So now it's being properly handled in the CLI. So whenever the agent is implementing an await and it traces an await, then it will properly show up in the CLI so that you as a user have an option to react to the await and provide a response. There is a really cool example in BeeAI framework of requirement agent, which is leveraging that concept. So it's kind of a combination of requirement agent plus remote agent, which is actually running in a platform. Tomasz, I believe Tomasz will tell you more about the requirement agent. And take it as the first step, right? We started with the CLI just to make sure it works in the CLI, but obviously the next step is make it really pretty and work in the graphical interface as well. So it's gonna be in GUI as well. We also made some really cool documentation updates. So the whole structure of the documentation is now much better. The idea is that we've got a quick start guide, which will get you up to speed in very fast manner. But it just, it just entails the basics and fundamentals. But there are detailed how-tos for every single thing that is kind of touching the platform. It will basically guide you through the whole journey of, like, you want to start building your agent, you implement it, you wrap it in the platform. Then how do you turn this into an image? And then obviously how you take the whole platform and deploy it in the Kubernetes cluster. So the thing that is coming soon is in the documentation, is the OpenShift integration. We're planning to document that as well. So if you're using OpenShift, then it should work as well. So next cool feature is file upload. So right now it's possible to upload a file through GUI. We're leveraging the ACP message part, which is containing the content URL and content type. So anytime you upload a file in the GUI, it's gonna get appended as a separate message part with the content URL and content type, which you can easily download through some traditional HTTP client. The reason we decided to build it now is because we are attempting to solve the RAG use cases, and obviously this is one of the first steps. And it will also enable much more complex workflows that will actually utilize the file content. Since it's implemented on top of the ACP message part, you're basically open to do anything you want with the file. It's gonna get your agents. Another cool addition is the refactoring of the whole architecture. Now it's Kubernetes-backed architecture. So the whole platform is actually running in Kubernetes. The reason why we decided to go this way is just to make sure we are ready for more enterprise-ready deployments, which is one of the very important requirements we were getting. So the goal of this rewrite was to make sure that we got unified development experience for both local and remote production-like deployments. So we are running the Kubernetes inside Lima VM in your local installation as well, in completely isolated environment. We are also providing the Helm chart, so it's relatively simple to get it up and running. You can try it locally, you can try it in your cluster. So these were past features that we implemented, but also there are cool new things coming up pretty soon. As Mateusz already showed you, the citation metadata in the ACP, we're trying to leverage that in the platform to make a really nice UI for those citations. So, excuse me. So the goal right now is to make sure we'll be leveraging more these kind of UI components from the ACP, and then making it very nice in the UI when it comes to the try experience for your agents. So this is one of the main features we're trying to implement right now. And another part of the puzzle is actually user identity support. So right now, when you install the platform, there's no concept of user. Once this change is introduced, then when you're running the platform, you'll be able to actually log in. We're most likely make it very transparent for local usage, so that there's no need for a login when it comes to local deployment. But when it comes to remote deployment, like some production-ready deployment, obviously the concept of user is very, very much needed. So this is our something we're just trying to implement as the first priorities. And here's the call to action, because obviously we're implementing a lot of these new cool features in the platform that would support, basically much more, much better interaction when it comes to UX. But the problem is that since we're focusing on those features, we have a lot of depth when it comes to actually list of our out-of-the-box agents. Because all of those agents need to be adjusted to incorporate the new functionality of the ACP as well as the platform. So, for instance, the file uploads, awaits, citations, sources, all these new things that are either already implemented or are coming pretty soon to the platform. Every single agent that is part of the platform right now, when you install it, has to be updated. So we decided we would be providing tickets where we cover all the functionality that has to be implemented in those agents, and that's where community contributions are really welcome, because these tickets are really good first issues for a couple of reasons. Well, obviously, one of the reasons is that agent implementation is really isolated, so you don't really need to know details of the platform and the history of the platform. And the second reason is that there's obviously a lot of work that we would be super happy to get some support from the community. So in other words, just look for help wanted label. We are slowly adding more and more tickets, which are very good candidates for you to contribute, and we are very happy to support you with that. So I'm guessing that's it. And I would like to give a word to Radek, who would like to do a bit of a demo as well.
Be awesome.
Yeah, let me share the screen and show you actually the file. So I have a simple agent here which is working with files. Let me just run it here using the UV run. And now my agent should be like self-registered using the self-registration feature to the platform. So if I open up the UI and refresh, I have it here. And let me just add some files here. So I have this image, and the agent is basically doing a funny thing with the image. I can also add multiple images at once. I can also drag and drop. Oh, this one is not working for some reason. Yeah, no, it works. Yeah, so both are kind of modified. How this works, there is I can simply read the list of messages, and if the message part has the content URL, I can download the content using any HTTP client, and then I can do stuff with the image, which is this function. There's using some OpenCV and image recognition software, and then I can upload the image back to the platform using normal HTTP post, and I will read I will yield the response to the user as back as the content URL. If you're curious, like here's the code for the image transformation. This was all vibe coded, so really like a simple functionality. And yeah, that's all I wanted to show you.
Awesome. Thanks, Rada. Can you post the link to the example in the chat so people can check it out?
Oh yeah, this is just my local agent, but we'll put it as part of the examples if people find it useful.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to have as an example. Even if it's a silly example, I love it.
Okay.
Cool. Awesome. So I think we're up to framework updates. So Tomas, other Tomas?
Yeah. Okay, that's me. At least I think so. So hello, everyone. I am super excited to tell you something about the requirement agent and the new await functionality, because it's available not just in the platform, but also in the framework. So without further ado, let me share my screen and let's deep dive in it. So first of all, I will start with our brand new documentation, where you can find more about the requirement agent. The requirement agent is a new agent in the framework that is about to replace all other agents, because other agents can be built by on top of it by just using those requirements. This document briefly describes what it is, how it works, what are requirements, what are rules, and how do they work. It also shows you how easy it is to create, for instance, a React agent based on that requirement agent, how to write your custom conditions, requirements, and etc. So we are excited about it, and we would like to get a feedback from the community. You can provide the feedback on our GitHub. I'm now talking about the BI framework GitHub page. There is an issue for that. And I think it's better to show you some demos so you can imagine what problems this is solving. So let's now change the shared window to jump into my IDE, and I will show you a few examples. So let's say that you have this really simple agent with a tool, with two tools, and one LLM with no further configuration needed. The agent, we ask the agent, like, what's the current weather? And you can see that the problem is that we are not specifying any location. Why? Because we expect that the agent will use the get user tool to retrieve additional information about the current user. But if I run it, I can see that the agent called OpenMetal with input with location name current location, which is obviously wrong, and therefore failed to provide an answer. Now, the question is how to force the agent to use this tool before using OpenMetal tool. And this is where requirements come to the game. We can define a requirement that says you have to use getUser at step number 1. So before calling other tools, you firstly call this getUser tool, and then you can do whatever you want. So if I now run the agent again, I can see that the agent firstly called the getUser tool, and then he called the OpenMetal tool with a correct location name. And that was it. I get the correct answer by just adding this line of code. It's a way better approach than trying to nudge the model, nudge the agent via system prompt, by updating system prompts, templates, and its instructions, etc. You can do that you can obviously do that by adding some instructions, but it's better to handle that situation on multiple levels, because you know that if you do this just on the system prompt level, there is no guarantee that the agent will follow your instructions. So this was the first very simple example. Let me show you the second one. In the second example, we have our agent that it's a general agent that has one requirement from us. And the requirement is, after we resolve the task, send a summary to user's email by leveraging a tool. In this case, it's a send summary tool. If I now run the agent and ask the agent something like tell me something about Greek history, because you have Wikipedia that you can use, we can see that the agent is calling Wikipedia tool, which is correct. And in this case, the agent called the send summary. But there is no guarantee that this will happen. So what we can do about that, we can introduce a requirement that states that the send summary tool must be invoked at least once. So now the requirement will prevent the termination of agent before calling it. We can also limit numbers of executions by just adding a max invocations parameter. So you can program how the agent treats tools. You can imagine that the send summary tool is kind of expensive. For instance, it sends it calls some number, or it sends SMS that you need to pay for. But you can limit numbers of execution. Let's jump to the third example, and this example is about riddles. We have this neat riddle for our agent, and we are using Llama 3.2 from Potsonix AI. In order to improve the chances of providing a correct answer, we use a think tool to give room to our agent to kind of think. If I run this, I can see that the agent is using think tool, but for some reason, it used the think tool 3 times, and then it provide incorrect answer. What we can do about that? We can again leverage the requirement concept. To be more concrete, we can use the conditional recommend that can be found in the framework, and we say, hey, you need to use this think tool at step 1. That means at the very beginning, and you can only use it once. So the agent uses it, and then there is like no other things to do, so it provides a final answer. If I run it again, I can see that the agent used a think tool, and then it gave me a final answer, which is correct. And finally, let me show you one more requirement, the built-in requirement, and that's ask permission requirement. And this requirement basically asks you for a permission before invoking any tool. You can either specify which tools are like included or excluded, and if you don't specify any, it applies to all of them. So what this code does, it basically creates an agent with this requirement. The agent has one tool, open method tool. It has a name and description, and we use this middleware to log intermediate steps to our terminal. And then we register that agent to a platform. So we can see that agent has been registered to the BeeAI server. Then we can run the console to play with the agent. So great, I'm using platform CLI to do that. And I can ask what's the current weather in Prague. And I can see in logs above that the run has been started, which is great. And now the run has been awaited. And the agent is asking, or the system is asking for permission. So it waits for my action. And the message is like, the agent wants to use the open method tool with the following input. And it's up to me how I decide. So let me allow that execution. I can see what is happening under the hood. And after a few seconds, I got the response. This behavior is not supported in the UI, as was already mentioned, but you can use it in the CLI or in your own application. So, and maybe the last point is how it's implemented, because it's fairly crucial, because the ask permission requirement lets you to pass your own way, your own handler, how to, propagate such requests to the user depending on the environment. Because one would expect that if you use this requirement in your terminal, you will be prompted in your terminal. If you use it in your UI, you will be prompted in the UI. And this is done by leveraging a standard I/O operations. So instead of hard coding Python's input function, you can now use pre-built I/O read that does this magic on your behalf. So this was my update about BeeAI framework and how it connects to the platform and ACP.
Thank you, Tomas. All right, we have reached the Q&A section. We saw like 3 demos today, so I'm sure there must be some questions out there around features, capabilities, what's coming, roadmap. So I'll open it up to the floor. Give everyone a second to type a question. I won't pick on anyone, but I will try to encourage questions. I'll start with a question while everyone is kind of thinking and typing questions. We saw and this is more just a poll for feedback, right? Awesome, first question rolling in. But this is more of a poll for feedback. So you saw some of the file upload capabilities in the platform. You saw capability that's not yet supported in the UI on the platform, but in the framework, the requirements. what are other features or functionality that you think, or components that, as you're building out agents in the platform, you would like there to be a UI feature for? And you can just, raise your hand, unmute yourself if you can, or type in the chat if you'd like. You guys are the ones that are building these things out, so we'd really like to know if what UI components are necessary for the types of use cases that you're building out. Everyone napping. It is early here, so maybe napping. Awesome.
There was a comment from the chat and a raised hand.
Yes.
I think people can't necessarily chime in, so maybe there's a Tomasz with hand raised. Can we
Yes. You can help. I'm trying to.
Yeah, he's unmuted.
Great.
Or you can
Okay.
unmute yourself now.
Now you can unmute yourself.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So, but I've been discussing already with the guys in chat. We want to basically connect the resource into BeeAI platform, which is a long chain hybrid search. But in the we are discussing that if we can do it with a ACP or with a MCP. So my question is like, how can we do it very easily? I seen your example in here. It looks very straightforward. I'm just like trying to see that how to do it now with my stuff.
Maybe I will try to answer that because we had some chat with Tomasz. It really depends, right? It depends if you are building a tool or an agent, right? If you need agentic behaviors or what if you truly building a tool, I think MCP is the right way to go. If you need some, yeah.
I'm thinking like plugging the agent like into BeeAI UI, and it would be doing the chat against our hybrid search. Basically, like I seen you have upload of the files and doing the stuff. So I would like to be like pluggable into the platform to have it in the UI chat, but just chat and use our search, not the like in the rack.
Yeah, but do you still expect to have some agentic behaviors? Do you expect to have the chat with it? Like, is there LLM involved in it, right? And probably the question or the answer to that is yes, right? So obviously the way to go is to wrap it in ACP, and as the guys showed, if you just use the ACP SDK, it automatically registers in the platform for you, right? So this auto registration feature is pretty cool. And that works locally, obviously. If you want to do it in the deployment in the cluster, then there is other ways how to do it. But
I think one thing would be maybe just in MCP you can register it as a resource, but of course, like in BeeAI, it could be agent, which is using our own watsonx instance, as LLM. Because in your example using Olama, right? In your localhost.
Yeah.
So you can use any LLM, like you can use watsonx, right? With a with a
you can. I mean, and ACP is not really opinionated, so it really depends if what you need, right? If you need an agent, you need LLM, you can use the framework. What the Tomasz was showing you, the requirement agent, right? That's the place where you can get agentic behavior and plug any LLM provider. It doesn't need to be watsonx. You can use Olama, whatever. That's we have the adapter or the backend based on the LLM, so we pretty much support anything in there. But if your case is that you don't really need the agentic you might just go with ACP, just write the code in ACP and get the user interface in the platform without the LLM if you don't need it. If it's just a input to your tool and getting output of your tool, and there is no agentic behavior in there, you don't need LLM in between.
Well, what I would expect as agentic behavior is that the resource part, like in MCP, would provide a resource into any agent, right? So I would expect like BI as a platform where you can plug any agent which can use the hybrid search.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then definitely you want to build an agent, wrap it in ACP, put it in platform, and use the MCP for the tool part, and have the resources, for example, the tool. I don't know what exactly is your use case for that, but both of these things would work. And as we stated, I think in the docs as well, like ACP works very well with MCP, and it's intended to work alongside, right?
I mean, what I understood, just doing my own research between ACP and MCP is basically very similar. So I would expect that the ACP is providing not just the tools, but the resources as well. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I haven't really seen the difference between MCP and ACP, so that's why I'm asking. Like,
yeah.
I'll link a good article. Well, it's kind of biased for me to say good article because I wrote it. I'll link an article I didn't write also in the chat that explains the difference between MCP, ACP, and A to A.
Yeah, I've seen the like comparisons, but just it's just a philosophical question, the team.
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Jared, you have your hand up.
I do. Hey, folks, I'm Jared. First call. Amazing. Great to be here. Question and comment. Maybe responding back, Cindy, to your question of like what UI elements. I think, one of the things I have been fascinated by and really thinking about is like, what is the visualization of multi-agent systems? Particularly what I found compelling about ACP is like the ability to quickly discover other agents. But is there a way to actually visualize that on a user's kind of like local node, right? I think is like one of the things that like immediately was popping in my head as I was really digging in and like trying to think about. And I think, just based on what was shared with the requirements agent, one of the things, and shout out to Tomas for sharing that, I immediately thought of kind of the piece that Anthropic put out about basically like how they built, their version of deep research using effectively like requirements agents and sub agents that Opus 4 would call Sonnet 4, and I think there's like something really, really compelling there. And so my question is like, I'm curious. I know obviously the requirements agent is super new, but like what use cases do you really see around that? And if you guys have been thinking about kind of visualization of agent discoverability as well.
I can speak to that on a couple.
Kate, do you want to?
Yeah, I can speak on a couple points. So yeah, we so there is it was a bit of a side project for us, but within the IMB repo, you can look at Beekeeper, which is an effort where it's exactly the same architecture. So where there's an orchestrator agent, you put in a query and it creates sub agents, and it's got a very delightful and nerdy GUI that shows kind of the agent configuration as you have the chat on the left. So that's like kind of one just like exploration. We've also been doing a lot of design explorations. I don't know if the members of our design team are on the call, but lots of explorations about how like an end business user will consume multi-agent sessions. Like, I think there's a big question as to whether you feel you're talking to one entity. There's a lot of the commercial offerings like Claude and OpenAI for a long time have been multi-agent systems. And with that new article, it's like, oh, I think Anthropic are doing a great job at actually disclosing under the hood. Whereas I think a lot of times we've been using the word model when we're not talking to a model, we're talking to a multi-agent system. So I think it's a huge UX UI question about how much do we disclose to a user that, hey, your task is being handed off to this sub agent. And I think the dominant paradigm right now is to not share that. It's just you're talking to like a hive mind, essentially. I think like Borg, I think like there's lots of, you know what I mean? It's like one entity, but I think there's more explorations to be done. And I think depending on the use case, the level of criticality, like how critical, like the levers here are like how critical is a task in terms of like how much transparency do I need, and how trusted is the system, like how much does it get it right. Obviously, if it's a non-critical task that gets it right most of the time, I don't need the details. If it's a highly critical task, which, you know, a lot of us on this project are from IBM, a lot of our clients are dealing with things like business like finance, where you can't get something wrong, and or uptime for large, you know, mainframe systems. For those kind of things, you may want a very high degree of visibility of what's going on under the hood, know every single sub agent that's being invoked, and because it's high criticality and maybe it doesn't get it right. You know, the system's not as mature as we want it to be. So I think we're doing a lot of visual explorations of how that should look. Should we use like a Slack paradigm and reference the agent we want to use? Should we progressively disclose? So I think it's going to vary a lot depending on use case, vertical, and user. So if you're a developer user and you're kind of making the system, maybe you want something like the Beekeeper, where there's like a control plane essentially where you can see your agents going in and out. And if you're an end user, maybe less is more. So lots of explorations there. And if you guys want to like follow up on the Discord or start opening channels about that, we've largely been doing it kind of as the core team. But if there's community interest, we would love to get involved. Yeah, hope that answered the question. There were multiple parts. If I didn't, then I'm happy to.
Also, I want to give Jared a quick shout out. I met Jared last week at an event in Seattle, and then the next day he sent me the repo that he built, which I was like, wow, we need more Jareds. All right, I see a couple more hands raised. So Diego, you have your hand raised.
Hi, everybody. Diego here. First meetup, great presentations. Not really a question, just mostly saying hi. I'm a new member of Red Hat's Trusty AI team, where I'm starting an initiative on trustworthy agents. And the BeeAI framework came up in our research as having some interesting capabilities around that idea. And by trustworthy, we mean the general umbrella of AI that you can confidently deploy to production. And so clearly the requirements agent seems to be headed in that direction. And so we're quite interested. There's someone else from the team that's actually a part of IBM, Evelyn, on the call as well. And so mostly saying hi, and perhaps the question I could ask is, have you been thinking about trustworthy agents? And is there anyone in your team that's focused on that perhaps we could have some discussions about potential collaborations? Thank you.
That answer is firmly yes. Actually, our squad expanded their. I'll give a name. Ian Malloy. He's part of COS AI. So the folks with a deep security background have joined on, collaborating with Tomasz, who showed the requirements agent. So Terrell Taylor and Fred Arujo. I don't know if any of them are on this call. They may have had a conflict. But happy to kind of post contact information. That's where we're looking to differentiate, because we have deep expertise in the area, and you know there's a lot of move fast and break things work going on out there. We don't need to replicate any of that. I think we can be helpful with that. We're moving from experimentation to implementation and enterprise deployment, and that's where these things really matter. So yes. The answer is yes, and we've got names, so I'm happy to follow up offline, or I don't know, on the Discord or Slack, what have you.
Sounds good. Thanks so much. I'm in the process of getting an IBM ID, so I'll do that and reach out.
Oh, great. But also, like, if we want to move, like, in the spirit of openness, we can keep this, like, I would love to have a thread on Discord so that everybody here in the community can participate. So let's maybe start a channel there. I'll take that as a follow-up action and tag in the relevant folks.
Thank you.
We have another hand up. Eric?
Hi, yeah. Also my first meeting. Good stuff. I'm just getting my feet under me about, implementing AI agents and all that stuff. And I've been running into a lot of issues because I do work at IBM, and I have a team that's interested in creating, RAG environments, and I'm part of another team that's trying to figure out how to implement stuff for customer doc. And so you opened a box of worms that I have a question about, Kate, because when you talk about agents being invoked and stuff, and maybe I'm not quite understanding how this works, but there's the concern about passing information, because like some of the stuff that I work with is IBM internal to a point where only very specific people at IBM are able to look at it, and we don't want that information being later used to train AI models, because we can't have that information getting out. So is there a way that we can like say don't use these platforms or only use XYZ, and really have a lot of control over where the information is being pushed around to? And or is that out of the scope of this kind of thing? Maybe I'm, not in the right place for that.
No, that's certainly in scope. Those are the kind of discussions we're having, that, and trying to basically decide, what do we need to implement at the protocol level to enable that? That would be a concern. I would think of a platform more at the implementation layer. But these are the kind of questions, especially as you move from kind of agents as tools with a single orchestrator to distributed systems, where one of the things we really want to push on is having centralized policy and distributed enforcement for these kind of concerns. So I just opened a channel in the Discord. I know trust can mean a lot of things, but I called it Trustworthy Agents. I'll post the link to it here. And then maybe we can continue these. May rename the channel if we have a better name. That'll be the first discussion item there.
Okay, thanks. I'll check it out.
And then Finketta had a question in the chat around her team is interested in building an a Slack bot with MCP, and was wondering whether BeeAI platform is compatible for this task, or we have any documentation examples. And the answer is yes, the framework can support MCP, and you can bring that into the platform. And I think we do have an example. Tomas, can you send over the MCP example in the chat so we can link out to that?
Yeah, but I think that we already discussed that one with Venkata on internal Slack. But her use case is more complicated, and maybe we can discuss that later on. But in general, the Slack functionality is provided from that MCP server. And the functionality is kind of limited. For some use cases, there is no searching, etc. So maybe the question is more about that. And yeah, it would be interesting to see if anyone had solved it.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that brings our June meeting to about a close. If there's any more questions, please post it in the Discord channel. We'll be responsive and answering it there. Again, if you have contributed anything, written anything about BeeAI as a project in general, please let us know so we can share it with the community. Make sure that your hard work is publicized. And lastly, we have the deeplearning.ai course for ACP that's coming out next week on June 25th. And so we're really excited about that. So if you haven't gotten a chance yet to get hands-on using ACP, but because you've been kind of waiting for something that's a little bit more structured to be able to teach you, then this will be the perfect opportunity to go ahead and get hands-on with ACP and in a more lecture style / interactive way. All right, that's it for this month. See you next month.
Cheers.
Thanks all. Bye.